That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about The Exorcist Believer, the 16th film directed by David Gordon Green, which is the 6th entry in the Exorcist franchise, and the second iconic franchise that David Gordon Green is running into the ground.
Can you name a few films of his I've seen?
Well, you've seen his Halloween trilogy, of which there were two of those we reviewed. I don't know what else you've seen by him, but I'm really a big fan of his early work, such as George Washington or All the Real Girls. I really like his two 2013 titles, Joe and Prince Avalanche. You've seen The Sitter and Your Highness and Pineapple Express.
Oh, I know Pineapple Express.
As well. So yeah, he's pretty prolific. You've also seen him in movies. He's a cannibal in Bones and All, directed by Luca Guadagnino as well.
This film, when two girls disappear into the woods and return 3 days later with no memory of what happened to them, the father of one girl seeks out Chris MacNeil, who's been forever altered by what happened to her daughter 50 years ago. What's your pull quote?
Double the demons isn't double the fun. In David Gordon Green's requisitioning of The Exorcist, a tolerable but hardly hair-raising plundering of the original film's assets. Ultimately, it's a lazy way to enhance the pedigree of an otherwise familiar, basic story.
Mine. A pastor, a witch doctor, and a nun walk into a bar. It's a shame the film tried so hard to incorporate the 1973 classic because A, it doesn't work, and B, the missing girls plotline was so much more interesting.
Did we mention that the film is opening on October 6th, 2023, courtesy of Universal and Blumhouse?
No, we didn't. So the basic story, Leslie Odom Jr. is raising his daughter Angela, who's 13 years old, by himself in Georgia because when the mother was very pregnant with Angela, they were in Haiti on vacation. There was a major earthquake. She was injured in a building collapsing, and the doctors believed that they wouldn't be able to save both the mother and the daughter. So we see that the mother died and Angela lived. But we also find out that at the time when the doctors, it's the opening of the film, and as the audience, we see the doctor ask Leslie Odom Jr., like, who do you want to save? But we don't see his answer. But we later learn that he had chosen to save the mom, which this demon uses against him later. But it's 2023, and Angela, it's important to know Leslie Odom Jr.'s character is a staunch atheist. And Angela is kind of friendly with this girl at school, Katherine. Angela's played by
Lidya Jewett, and Katherine is played by Olivia Marcum.
People seem surprised that these two girls are friends, but we see that they leave school one day and they tell a lie to their parents, they're going to go to some girl's house and study. But the two of them leave to go into the woods and perform a seance because Angela wants to communicate with her dead mother. And she knows that she can't talk to her dad about it because he's very atheist. And this Katherine girl, her family is super religious. So she believes Katherine can help her. So they perform this seance. And next thing we know, these girls are missing. And they end up missing for 3 days. And the first act of the film is it kind of reminded me of that movie Prisoners with Hugh Jackman and Terrence Howard.
Sure.
Because you have the parents of Katherine and then Leslie Odom Jr., the father of Angela, trying to figure out, they have a contentious sort of dynamic, and because they're,
stressed out and desperate.
But these girls just pop up one day and
at a farmhouse 30 miles away from where they were last seen.
And they get taken, of course, by police to the hospital, and a million questions being examined. And these girls are what's wrong? Are we in trouble? We were only gone for a few hours. And they're like, no, y'all were gone for 3 days. So then we see the girls start acting like your typical possessed kid. And the nurse who is caring for Angela, played by Dowd, something happens where Angela says something to Anne's character that no one could have known, which is that Anne was
she was a novitiate,
studying to be a nun, but she had to stop because she ended up becoming pregnant and had an abortion. And Angela in that bed not only tells her that, but also knows her new name, like what her name would have been as a nun. So now this nurse is 100% convinced this girl is possessed.
And notably, she's also the next door neighbor of...
And she's the neighbor of...
Angela and Victor.
So she shows up at Leslie Odom's house talking about read this book. And the book is Ellen Burstyn's book.
It was, I think the title is A Mother's Explanation.
So now, 50 years later, Ellen Burstyn is like a world-renowned expert on exorcisms. She travels the world giving talks. And if you remember from the 73 film, she was also a famous actress. So she's kind of like a big deal. And Ann Dowd's character convinces Leslie to contact or to meet with Ellen. And all we see is one phone call. We don't know how this happened. But the next scene is Leslie is at Ellen's house. And then the next scene is that Ellen is at this like psychiatric hospital looking at Angela. And she goes, oh yeah, I know that demon.
Or that demon knows who I am.
Or the demon knows me. That's the demon who possessed my daughter, Reagan.
And Angela has scratched Reagan's name into the...
This is where things get real ridiculous because Ellen ends up going... I don't know where she lived because they're in Georgia, but when Leslie goes to visit Ellen, she's like in a waterfront mansion. And then next thing you know, Ellen, who's this old lady walking with a cane, shows up at a hospital, then shows up at the house of the little girl, Katherine.
And things have gone haywire there.
She's fully possessed, looking crazy. And then Ellen performs an exorcism on this girl, like an on-the-fly exorcism. And what happens? This girl gouges Ellen Burstyn's eyeballs out with 2 crucifixes.
No, I think it's 1 crucifix.
Is it 1? You're right, it's 1. I'm thinking of that movie with Olivia de Havilland where she's stuck in the elevator.
Lady in a Cage.
When she tries to stab James Caan, and those little metal pieces just bend. Anyway, now Ellen Burstyn's blind in the hospital. We also find out that Ellen has not seen Reagan in 40 years. Like she went into hiding. Okay.
And so at that point in the film, you know either Linda Blair didn't want to have a participation in this film or that's a plot twist.
So now, while that was all happening, Ann Dowd's character went to go see a priest. To get help. And that priest...
Father Maddox, played by E.J. Bonilla.
Which was so weird to me because we just reviewed the 73 film, and in that film there was a big plot point about Father Damien Carus talking about, girl, it is modern time, don't nobody believe in exorcisms, we believe in medicine, psychiatry.
Nobody's trained in that.
No one's trained in this, like we don't do this, so we're not doing an exorcism for you. That's why we have to call in Father Marin. But in this film, Ann Dowd just walks down to the local Catholic church and the priest is like, oh yeah, girl, whatever you need, we'll do this exorcism. And then we get a scene
with the church officials who are like, we want to do everything we can to help you.
Yeah, we want to help you. That took me out.
But ultimately decide not to let him participate.
At the last minute, he says, oh no, the church won't let me do it. So good luck, girl. And hands her a book of prayers saying like, you do it, Norbert. So then the final act of the film is a community exorcism, which is where my Pope quote comes from, because we get Katherine's family, their church, that pastor. We get this random witch doctor who we met earlier in the film.
Dr. Behibi?
Who we can talk about. And then the nurse turned nun. And then the family members are all there and they perform this exorcism.
It's a very polytheistic exorcism.
And the twist is the demons, we never addressed the dual possession, which was something I'd never seen before. So I feel like this is a unique selling point of this film that just totally gets swept to the side. But the demon tells everyone, oh, I'll leave, but you have to choose one of the girls, implying that one has to die. So the parents at first are like, we can't choose. So they're in anguish. But then the dad of Katherine,
Tony, played by Norbert Leo Butz,
who I thought was kind of corny.
He's a 2-time Tony Award winner. But...
he ends up breaking down and he goes, I choose Katherine. And then the gag is the demon interpreted that as like, oh, you choose her to die since you want to be so damn selfish. So Katherine dies, Angela lives. Then we flash forward a bit and we see that Angela's doing all right, back in school.
Which is in keeping with that father, how when the girls are both first found in the hospital room, when his daughter's being interviewed by the medical professionals, he does so without his wife being there. Do you remember she shows up?
That's
It's like,
right.
why didn't you wait for me?
Yeah.
So that's apparently his MO.
And then the final scene of the film is poor Ellen Burstyn is in the hospital blind, and someone comes in and she can't see them. So she's like, Victor, is that you? And it's Linda Blair. And she gives her mom a hug. The end.
Yep.
Man. I really think the worst part of this film is them trying to connect like Ellen Burstyn and Reagan into this story.
Would you say it suffers from Reaganomics?
Trickle down. No. Because it feels so forced and stupid. And how did they get in contact with Ellen Burstyn, that character? How did Leslie Odom just show up at her house? How did she just show up back in Georgia?
They give her nothing to do but kind of this like silly way to talk about the subtext of the film, which is about how church is more than just about faith, it's about community. Which again is very much like how David Gordon Green ended the Halloween franchise with the community disposal of Michael Myers.
Yeah, it felt like that, and I just thought the community exorcism part could have been interesting, but I think why? And then I don't understand the connection between Reagan being possessed 50 years ago and how this same demon
by the same demon
now picks these two girls, and somehow they have access to Ellen Burstyn, her character. That part was so off to me.
And then it's like you get this iconic actor, Ellen Burstyn, and really give her nothing to do. And then very cruelly, I think, blind her.
Yeah.
And I don't understand, because much like he did with the Halloween films, this is going to be the first of 3 installments. So is she going to be involved in the others? I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know, but I feel like it's so weird to bring her and Linda Blair back for this one, knowing that there will be 2 more films. Like, are they going to be in them? But it was such a shame because the first act really, I found very interesting, because the opening in Haiti and the dynamic between the mother and Leslie Odom Jr.'s character I thought worked really well. Then getting back and seeing that the girls are missing, and that was creepy. But yeah, as soon as Leslie ends up at her house,
it just starts.
Because before that we get like YouTube clips of Ellen Burstyn back in the day talking about Reagan. And I thought that could have been sufficient. That's all we needed. Maybe Leslie Odom's character is watching videos with Ellen Burstyn from back in the day, and that inspires him to seek help. But yeah, once she shows up at the halfway point, I thought the film became very silly.
Yes, it does. And I agree. The first act is actually kind of interesting and even compelling, and made me want to know where they're going with this. And then I didn't dislike this film, but I didn't care for it.
No. Okay, let me get through these notes. Leslie's character I thought was kind of annoying, and he seems to want to annoy other people, because when we first see him back in Georgia, like 13 years later, he's annoying one of his neighbors because he doesn't bring his trash bins in. Then he drops off his daughter at school, and he's annoying one of the parents in school because he cut in the parking line to then block like a bus lane, and he doesn't seem to care. And then the way he talks to people, he's kind of a dick.
Wow. He didn't bother me that much.
He didn't bother me. I liked him, and I thought he did well in this movie, but I thought it was interesting that they make his character seem kind of difficult, on top of he's an atheist, and I don't know. Another thing that we don't get at all, well, a very brief moment at the end of the film is, what were these girls up to in the 3 days they were gone?
Well, the makeshift seance or whatever they're doing to try to commune with the dead, which is interspersed with a montage of jackhammering at a nearby construction site, which I take it as in relation to what happened to her mother in Haiti, these things that are coming out of the earth that are being unsettled, which is like the original Exorcist with the excavation that's going on. But to me, none of that really ties together very well. At least that is given to us in this film. So I don't know, maybe 6 years from now when all 3 are out, I'll think differently. But for now, as a standalone film, I don't think it's very cohesive.
I do think when the parents initially, before the police arrive at the scene, where the woods are, where they last saw the girls enter, it's the 3 parents who show up. And Leslie Odom actually finds a hole where the girls were performing the seance. And he finds his daughter's shoe. He finds a necklace that belonged to his dead wife. In the scene where he finds the necklace, there's a snake by it. I thought that was pretty effective.
Well, I saw you jump.
Yeah, it was pretty effective.
Yeah, and again, it looks good. It was shot by Michael Simmons, who did Halloween films for David Gordon Green and Project Power.
When Leslie gets back home, before the girls are found, because he must park like in front of his house. When he walks up to his front door, it's nighttime and his front door is wide open. And I thought I would not walk into my house if I came home and my front door was open.
And that's where his neighbor Danny, who's also like a Pentecostal preacher, is inside with a trio of ladies.
Well, but right. So then I'm like, it's so weird that he even walked into his house. Like, but then he does, and he hears noise, and we find out that his neighbor you just mentioned has hired like these witch doctors to come like bless Angela's room. I thought that was really weird.
Yes,
because it's not established. Like, are these two even close enough friends that it would make sense for him to do that?
Well, he like coaches him at the gym, like boxing. So yeah, it's cutting a lot of corners.
The guy does explain that when something bad happened to his family, they had to go outside of
their faith system, their belief system.
So that's why he was doing this for Leslie's character, because he knew that he didn't believe in religion. But yeah, that was weird. Okay, I did think when the girls are found and they're taken to the hospital and the police are there, and then we get a very frenetic scene of like the doctors and the nurses and the police asking the girls questions. I thought that was very well done. And I think both of the girls do a fine job, but the one playing Angela,
Lidya,
I thought she did an exceptional job.
Yeah, she's pretty good.
Because she is serving face and those eyes. I think she looked really... You know who she reminded me of? The drag queen Olivia Lux.
Oh, okay. She's
beautiful.
She was reminding me of a mix of like Megan Good and Lily Rose Depp.
Sure. And a little Tatiana Ali.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm not going to talk about her hair, but it was very clearly like a piece onto, I don't know, look kind of crazy. Because the texture didn't match. Like when they find her, she has like really pretty, like loose curls. I mean, I'm assuming they don't want her out looking crazy with how her hair might probably look. But
Probably. But...
I liked that. What's that actor's name again?
Lidya Jewett.
I thought she did a fantastic job.
Yeah. And I think Leslie Odom is pretty good too.
Yes. So then when Angela gets home, another really good scene is she's acting weird, and then Leslie like tries to wake her up to get her ready for something.
He makes her breakfast.
And she's kind of passed out, and then he sees that maybe she like soiled herself in the bed. So he's kind of like, I thought it was very effective, like how awkward it would be for a single dad
with a teenage daughter.
That he's
got to clean up very intimately.
Right, and it's like, well, I'm not gonna like touch her, so he tries to like push her into the bathroom, and he just
starts the tub.
It just closes the door, and then he hears a loud noise, and the daughter's gone, but the tub water is all
brackish,
and there's like a random bloody toenail on the tub, and then the daughter attacks him and knocks him out. I thought all of that was very good.
It was, but it's shortly after that where the film really starts cutting corners, because then one of the next things we see him do is go like tour sanitarium to stick his daughter somewhere. And see, that's why I think the original Exorcist is so good, is because we kind of take a painstaking amount of time where Chris MacNeil is
trying to figure out
with the help of the medical community, and they kind of exhaust themselves, and maybe the audience a little bit too, in trying to figure that out in a realistic way.
Yeah, that's what's missing here is we take big leaps. Like, so, I mean, what did we try to help these girls before we just throw them in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest?
Yeah.
And then how did Ellen Burstyn get thrown into the mix? We see the nun make a phone call, and she says like, oh, I work for someone who knows her or something like that. But like, that seems like a huge leap.
But it's like, what exactly is her job? Because in the clips that we see of the DH Ellen Burstyn, she keeps saying she's not an exorcist. So what are you there to do?
What are you there to do? And why do you do a makeshift exorcism on the fly?
And in the name of your daughter Reagan. And why are you getting paid?
Well, is the nurse being paid? Did she quit her job as a nurse to work full time to protect this girl? I just thought that the nurse was doing too much, because then in the end, like when they decide to do the community exorcism, the nurse goes, I'm prepared to do this.
I live in the name of Jesus.
I'm a soldier for Christ, Team Jesus. And I believe that everything I've done has led me here. Like I sinned, got pregnant, had an abortion, dropped out of the nunnery, worked at this hospital so I could meet this girl, moved in next door so I could be here today. I thought that was very poorly written.
It's not. Okay, so Peter Sattler co-wrote it. I like a film he directed called Camp X-Ray, but I guess I just want to drag Scott Teems because I can't stand anything that this screenwriter has written, including Insidious, The Red Door, and the Halloween films, I believe. Oh, and the Firestarter remake. I just,
I also thought the priest was miscast.
Which priest?
The one who agrees to do the exorcism.
Oh, so E.J. Bonilla, I didn't even recognize him until I saw his name in the credits. The last time I really remember seeing him, he was a teen actor in films like a really good indie film called Four, and something called The House That Jack Built. I remember he had some nice screen presence, but he really has nothing to do.
He has nothing to do, and I thought he looked too young. I just didn't believe that guy would be like, yeah, let's do an exorcism.
And then he's sitting in his car, like...
And then he's driving a Lincoln Town car. I just thought none of it made sense. Like, this guy is a priest who's doing, like, exorcisms, and he's driving a Lincoln Town car.
And the community exorcism is struggling. Like, they're not doing well, which makes sense because if you think back to, again, the original where, Max von Sydow, who has this, great regal presence, is explaining, this demon's going to try to, F with you, so you need to be strong and not listen to it. And Dowd has already been confronted with the fact that this demon knows about her abortion. And all they do is mention that again and she breaks down. Like, come on now. And then the movie doesn't even play by its own rules because I can't understand why Father Maddox comes in, starts doing his BS, and then the demon kills him without touching him
Because we're told, like, you can't touch the person because then the demon will have access. I didn't understand that. And then, but then the priest just gets killed instantly. They snap his neck.
Why can't we do that to the rest of the people there? I don't know.
One moment that I almost fell out of my seat was Leslie goes to visit Ellen Burstyn at the hospital. And he looks at her and goes, I'm so sorry I brought you back into this. Like, in such a flat way. And it's like, her eyes were gouged out. This poor old lady.
She hasn't seen her daughter in 40 years, and she literally isn't seeing her at the end of the film. Like, it just feels so... David Gordon Green should be making that apology to Ellen Burstyn. I don't know.
Again, I think it was a missed opportunity to not at least try to explain the dual possession.
And then we get these shots of school kids having to read, like, they're listening to somebody listen to a recitation of Edgar Allan Poe's Lenore, and then there's another student, that other peripheral friend of theirs, who's reading Lewis Carroll's Jabberwocky. I don't know.
At the peak of the exorcism, when it's like they're about to burst, Leslie looks at Angela and says in like a very calm voice, when there's like pure hell happening, he goes, release it, baby. That made me laugh. And then we see that the witch doctor does something because the demons, like some smoke leaves the girls' bodies. And then the witch doctor lights a fire, and that fire traps the evil, and then it turns into liquid. And then the witch doctor tells Leslie, go dump. So then he like dumped this demon water in like the drain. I thought that was irresponsible. But then the one guy, I think it was the neighbor, he goes, is it over? Is that it? This dialogue had me laughing.
It's not good. And Danny McBride, who's an executive producer, also has story credit. I don't know why David Gordon Green and Danny McBride thought that it was their calling to move into horror, especially like resuscitating iconic franchise horror. Why? Another thing that made me laugh is, Angela is a beautiful girl, but the way her hair's done, and, her forehead she has like a big forehead. And then during the exorcism, she headbutts Leslie Odom Jr. and he flies across the room. That made me laugh. I don't know. I just think trying to tie the exorcism into this really took away from what could have been a very interesting story about these missing girls and how frustrating that was, and then how creepy it would have been for us to see what the girls were experiencing while they were missing. They could have just focused on that. Mm-hmm. But as it is, I think this is pretty bad. It was very watchable, though, compared to a lot of possession films where I'm bored. This movie had me going the entire time. That's why I'm giving it 2.5 out of 5. What do you want to give it? 2.
Anything else?
No.
Hit the thanks button. Listen to our podcast. Bye.